Hello, everyone, and it's absolutely great to be here. This is actually the first time I've spoken at a technology event in Northern Ireland, so thanks very much, AICon, for setting this whole thing up. And I am a partner in Deloitte. I'm the UK engineering CTO, and I lead our strategy and architecture practice across the UK. And in our firm, there's a lot of representation from Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland is actually the headquarters for a lot of our engineering delivery. And being born and raised in Northern Ireland, I'm very aware of the innovation and the resilience of the organizations that we have. And everybody's talking about AI at the minute. And there's massive opportunity within that as well. We hear that AI is going to absolutely revolutionize everything. But for a lot of organizations in Northern Ireland, that isn't realized in real life. 95% of AI projects start with massive enthusiasm and actually end in disappointment for end users. They can be very expensive. They can take months to years to deliver, and ultimately fail to deliver value to businesses. And the question is, why? So I'm going to spend the next 20 minutes going through some of the challenges and reasons that AI projects fail, and then I'm going to propose an approach to help manage those failures. I'll be talking about how to fail fast in AI through an experiments function, and how we can navigate that entire last mile. I'm then going to talk about Northern Ireland and some of the specific challenges that we have. I understand we've got politicians in the room. They're key to helping us unblock some of those challenges as well. So, hopefully you haven't all been hypnotized by the last slide. I was a little bit worried about that. Just a little bit about my interests. I started programming on the Commodore 64, for those of us who are old enough to remember that. Haven't stopped since. I'm a super nerd, really, but it's a bit about me. So if we were to take 100 projects and run that through a standard AI delivery life cycle, by the end, you could have 5 working products. And that's a startling statistic. And it's easy just to say, well, actually, it's the technology. We got the model wrong. There was a tech failure. But in the majority of cases, it's actually a problem caused by people, by processes, and being unable to get to that last mile. Now, these challenges, the ones in green, are ones that everyone faces, and here are some that are specific to Northern Ireland in, I think it's Azure. I'm not going to go through each of those, but what I'm going to do is run through some examples of AI projects and what went wrong. So, Humane released an AI pin. It was called a pin, but it was actually a box. And it was really an expensive tool that was looking for a use case. It had pretty bad user experience if you consider a device overheating and burning you to be a design feature. And the AI was slow. It didn't respond well, and the user interface was pretty bad. It was positioned as a replacement for a mobile device. And you know how difficult it is to get a phone out of anybody's hand nowadays. So that actually failed, and that was an example of misunderstanding the market. The next example is Zillow, and they had a Zestimate product. And what that was all about was estimating the price that a property would be. And everything was going well enough with that. And then this thing called COVID happened. And their model had been trained on data. When COVID happened, there was a lot of volatility in the market. Nobody thought, shall we adjust the model? It couldn't actually handle volatility in any way. So what happened is they bought thousands of houses and lost $500 million, and they had to close down that division. And that was an example of per is an understatement, per data quality. The next one is Midjourney. Everybody's probably familiar with it, so it creates either artistic or photorealistic images. And that went viral. It went viral, actually, because somebody shared a picture of the Pope in a puffer jacket. And use of that system absolutely spiked, but the system couldn't actually handle it. It wasn't built to scale. So what they had to do was cancel free access and move everybody, focus on paying customers. So that's what happened there. And there are much more serious issues than that. For me personally, Alexa cannot understand a Ballymena accent. It's really shocking. The amount of screaming that goes on in our house is ridiculous. So any of these things is a problem for getting to the last mile, whether that is misunderstanding your customers, having really dodgy data, and not being able to scale in production. So what do we mean about failing fast? And it's not about spending tons of money and getting loads of people into the organization. It's changing your point of view, and instead of viewing AI as a massive monolithic system, breaking it down into scientific experiments that you can then deliver. And the mantra here is really fail fast. And that doesn't mean planning to fail. It actually means getting your experiments and running through them as quickly and as cheaply as possible to find out what works. So how would you do that? Well, first, you have to get the right ideas. And Caitlin mentioned this earlier. Caitlin's getting an awful lot of airtime, shiny things. So you come back from reInvent, there's new services or something like that, or Vertex has released a new API. It's very tempting just to start building something. The challenge with that is that what you're building may not be relevant to the market. So you need to crowdsource your ideas. I've seen organizations crowdsource them, but only within IT. That's the wrong answer. So you need to be speaking to different parts of your business, to your HR, your marketing, your finance teams, to see what are the business pain points that they need to address. And then probably focus on 10 to 15 ideas. When you have those ideas, then you need to make sure that they're actually feasible. Are they going to deliver real impact to the business? Do you have good enough data quality to feed those models? And if you don't, bin it, right? Allow yourself to fail on paper and just move on to the next one. Not every idea is actually going to work in real life. And from there, we start building, but we build quickly. We would move from a prototype to a POC to an an MVP. And the objective there isn't for perfect, right? Nobody releases perfect. It would take you'd be working forever. So you need something that delivers business value. Once you have that, and this is a step that a lot of organizations miss, they produce something and then they move straight on to the next thing. You need to think about how is that solution going to remain evergreen. So when you deploy it, how are you going to keep it up to date? How are you going to hydrate it with data on a frequent basis? How are you going to manage and monitor that to look at bias, look at drift, etc.? So that's incredibly important. So when you put those things together, that makes it a lot easier to get to that last mile and to build products that are more likely to succeed. And it's important that you're including the business through everything, not just at the beginning. Your business needs to be included at your prioritization, at your prototyping, at how your solution is actually going to be operated. And lots of things will fail, and that's good. So your AI graveyard, for want of a better term, You should value that, and you should learn from it. So whatever you have in there is going to add real value to your business. So if you're going to be experimenting a lot, then there is a different type of approach you need to look at when you're delivering technology. And the Deloitte AI Institute's model, this is basically a very simplified representation of that. So it's about delivering a platform with shared components where the platform is safe, it is pre-configured, and it is cost-effective. And I'll just walk you through some of these areas. So your AI services and monitoring, that's really the gateway into your solutions. So if you take, for example, this is AWS API Gateway, that's your single ingress point. Whenever you want to authorize somebody for access to a system, they're going through that route. You can have your LLMs or LLM endpoints here, centrally monitor everything using monitoring tools, and across all this, AI guardrails is incredibly important. So making sure that your services are configured as you want them. And then the next thing is your data hub. There's obviously a risk when people start building things that you've got copies of data everywhere. You don't know where it is. You lose control of it. It's a massive, massive security risk. So centralize your data in a data hub. And within that hub, you'd put the controls that you need for access to that data. These experiments could be using the same APIs to actually access information. So now you have all this in place. You've got shared services. It's more economical. You need to be able to deliver environments for your users a lot more quickly. If users are going to be experimenting and taking multiple ideas and prototyping those, you don't want to go into service now and raise a request to your IT department and wait a couple of weeks for something. So you want to enable self-service. We are very heavy users of Terraform, so we're using Terraform in this example. So use Terraform to spin up environments for your AI engineers to develop. And provide the blueprints as well. Not every experiment's going to be the same. Some experiments could be looking at streaming information. Some experiments could be looking at big data. So create however many blueprints you need to satisfy your application archetypes. So together, this provides a way to get you to the last mile faster. Now I'm going to switch to Northern Ireland. Obviously here we've got world-class universities. We've got quite close and well-connected businesses. We've got the support of government, but there are unique challenges for Northern Ireland. We are, and this was mentioned before about SMEs, we are an SME-driven economy. And we don't often have the same money as multinationals. We don't have massive data science teams. And if we look at the statistics, that's why potentially 29% of organizations in Northern Ireland have an AI strategy, the rest don't. When we look at venture capital investment in NI, we received 9 million through VC funds in 2024. In the rest of the UK, or in the UK overall, it's 2.9 billion. So that is 0.3% VC money coming into this country for a country that is 2.4% of the population. So the more we can do to generate excitement and investment in our companies, the better. We also have quite a skills gap. I mentioned our excellent universities and our excellent graduates, right? But everybody's fishing in the same pool. There's fewer people to do the jobs, to deliver AI models and to be able to operate them once they're released. And my advice is first to look inside your own organization. Look at how you can retrain your own people, and don't restrict yourself to IT again. Look at marketing, look at HR, look at all your teams. These are very different skill sets. Often we're not asking people to sit down and write code. So look at your own organization first. And then, secondly, we've had massive success with the Shared Skills Academies in Northern Ireland. We've partnered with DFE to bring people into the firm. And social mobility is incredibly important to me. I've managed some of those academies, got people in. Our key engineer was actually used to work in his dad's Chinese restaurant. One of our best analysts used to work in a clothes shop. So bringing people through those processes, helping skill up people in Northern Ireland, giving them the opportunities they didn't have before, is incredibly important. For your organization, if you're looking for skilling, then speak to AICC. They have learning programs available. They can also help you when it comes to any funding options that may be available for your ideas. And some of these I've had to reference just in case I got in trouble. But data across the public sector in Northern Ireland is fragmented. It sits in silos. We haven't been great at defining an open strategy for data or for sharing information. So we're not going to be able to solve that here. What that will require is universities, businesses, and our local government to get together to think, how can we unblock this? How can we actually make it easier? And finally, regulations. We've spoken about that quite a bit earlier. We already have a higher regulatory burden than the rest of the UK. And whilst it hasn't been implemented yet, it's more than likely that the EU AI Act will also apply in Northern Ireland. So that's going to put a lot of requirements on what we build. We're going to have to categorize our applications and understand the types of things that we are doing, and therefore the controls that are necessary to manage those applications. And whilst we can't change the law, it's going to be important to consider when you're building your services to look at how you build a loosely coupled system. How do you have systems where you can easily introduce new features and new capabilities? And agentic AI is actually a really good use case for that. Okay, and that is about it from me. So I do want to leave you with a takeaway, which is don't go from this conference and think, I'm going to come up with a multi-year, multi-million AI strategy because your CFO will have an absolute heart attack. Think about what one thing could you do to deliver business value that you could test in a 4-week period. And Northern Ireland's absolutely fantastic. We've got great people. We punch well above our weight when it comes to innovation as well. So let Northern Ireland be known not for AI hype, but for building real practical value-add solutions. And that is it for me. I am going to say thank you very much to AICon and to Kainos. And thanks for listening. You didn't have to be in this room at this time, so I do appreciate it. Talking on stage for me is not easy, so thanks for not being a Ryder Cup audience as well. That's it. Okay.